He's gonna get you. He's gonna get you. He's gonna get you. Boogeyman is coming. That's my favorite part of the whole movie. What's up, guys? Welcome to Grave Shift with Tony Trujillo. I am your host, Tony Trujillo. Today we're going to be talking about John Carpenter's 1978 smash hit, Halloween. Now, like I just mentioned, it was made in 1978. It was actually, if I believe so, it only took a couple days to film. I want to say it actually only took a couple weeks. Let's see, I got some notes here on it. No, yeah, it took less than a couple weeks to make. That's a lot of that was because of short budget. We'll get into that a little bit, but basically Halloween is the original slasher film, and it is about a escaped mental patient, serial killer, whatever you want to call it, who escapes from an asylum, goes on the run, and goes to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois. Once there, he begins to stalk and ultimately kill off one by one a group of babysitters. The main character, Laurie Strode, is our hero in the story, of course, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. This is her film debut, and it is fucking awesome. I'm not a big Jamie Lee Curtis fan, but she's great in this film. I think this is definitely, I know how sad this sounds, but this is one of her better films. I'm just, like I said, I'm not big on her, but I do love this movie. But that's the basic premise of the movie. Now, it was called at one point The Babysitter Killers, if I'm not mistaken. That was part of the script that John Carpenter had completed in, I think it's about 10 days or 2 weeks, something along those lines. And when he had submitted it to the producer who had thought of the idea of the film in the first place, the producer had rejected it and told him that he wanted the movie to be named after a holiday, because in all this time there wasn't a horror film out there that was named after a holiday. So we have Halloween. Now let's get to some fun little facts before I start telling you what I like and don't like. This is something I didn't get to do with the last episode I did, so something new here. Fun little fact. This one's actually my favorite. The mask that was provided in the movie, because you got to understand, when the script was written for Halloween, there was no actual mask. It was just supposed to be made by itself. So with the description they were given, what John Carpenter and the crew had done is they went out and they got a cheap Captain Kirk mask and they spray painted it, altered it a little bit, and voila, we have the Michael Myers mask. That's one of my favorite facts. Another one is one I already mentioned, which is that it was originally supposed to be called The Babysitter Murders. The score, man, even if you haven't seen this movie, I'm pretty positive you've heard the theme for Halloween. Almost everybody has. You've heard it in haunted houses and other movies, people's phones. It's their ringtone. It's on MySpace pages and Facebook pages. It's everywhere. I really don't know if I've ever come across someone who has not heard that song before. And if you've heard it and don't know where it came from, you definitely need to jump off a cliff, because Halloween score from John Carpenter is phenomenal. I'm one of those guys that I love movie scores. This is one that I just dig wholeheartedly. But yeah, it took him 3 days to make, and he did it off of I think it was an old keyboard. There's a note that he did where it sounded very, I guess you could say, kind of vague to him. He didn't really like it. That's what John Carpenter has said over the times. He said that, the tone was very, wasn't sure about it. I guess I shouldn't use the word vague. I guess we could say it was more, it was just something that sounded complete to him and something that he liked, because one thing that John Carpenter does for his films is he puts all the scores in there himself. He does all the music scores himself. And when he was doing Halloween, he found one that he was okay with, and he felt that maybe this was perfect for the film, but he wasn't too sure of it as he is now. I mean, who would have thought that it would be the hit that it is now, of course. The score is one of my favorite parts of the film. It's one of my favorite parts of all time. I mean, we're talking about a movie that spawned like 10 follow-ups. I mean, we're talking sequels, remakes, reboots, you name it. Of course, none of them are as good as this one. Another fun fact that I wanted to throw in here, everybody on set of this film had provided their own wardrobe, and it shows. So this film obviously takes place in 1978, which is when it's released. It's definitely a 70s film. If you can't see it by the sideburns and the way that the women dress in this movie, definitely a 70s film. But because it was an independently made film, they had to provide their own clothes. And this is a film that's made off of a small budget of $325,000. Now, that may seem like a lot, but you got to remember back then, that's really not much. I mean, for me, that's a lot because, that's the price of a house. But back then, that was chips and soda. I mean, in this day, I think that a really low budget film is around 6 to like 12 million. So I guess you can call it a low budget film, but it was definitely independent. But for 325,000, this film had grossed 47 million in the U.S. box office, which I think internationally it's a 20 something. I can't remember directly, but 70 million total is how much this movie made in box office numbers. We're talking $70 million off of a budget of 325,000. That's not just a sleeper hit. That's a freaking mega success. I mean, the numbers don't lie, and the series shows that people really love these movies. But that is an accomplishment, to say the least. I think I'm going to go ahead and skip past the rest of these facts. I wrote down some useless ones. These, to me, are pretty personal. But, again, I'm going to try hard not to be too biased because I'm very biased when it comes to this film in particular. It's one of my favorites, probably one of my all-time favorite films. One thing I do love about this film is the cinematography. If you know me very well, you know I am a cinematography nut. I love the way things look. Even for being a 1970s film, this movie looks amazing. I'm talking, I can't even describe it. I'm getting a little, I got goosebumps right now just talking about it. I love this movie. I mean, you could see it in Blu-ray. You can see it in standard. It looks amazing, especially for what it is. It's a really old film, don't get me wrong. This is 1978. Okay, this isn't 2010. This is an old movie. But I love it. It just feels so realistic. Everything looks as if it was literally right in front of you without a camera being made. This looks like a real movie that's happening in front of you. That's what I love about it. Well, that's one thing. Another thing I truly love is just the feeling. I mean, Michael Myers, the serial killer in the film, which, by the way, even though we know his name, he's never actually referred to as Michael Myers except for by the doctor, Mr. Loomis. And so for some weird reason in the billing, the character of Michael Myers is billed as the Shape, and any real diehard Halloween fan will tell you that Michael Myers is the Shape, so that's what I call him. If you hear that, that's what it is. Anyways, I love how when the Shape is stalking his victims, especially our three main characters, they put you in like the POV of his point of view. There we go. So it's not just, the girls are running or they're being stalked by somebody they can see coming from behind them and you see them in the camera. It's you. You are the camera. You're the one that's doing the stalking. And then there's little bits and pieces too, of course, where, maybe they're looking around the hedge and then Michael stands out, walks right back in. Super fucking creepy. The reason I like that so much is because that's the ultimate feeling of fear. The idea that somebody could be outside your window and you're taking out the trash. You're about to go outside. There could be someone right there. You're in your garage. Someone's right outside the door. You can hear the breathing. Oh, the breathing in this film, that's the creepiest part. That's what got me the most is just, again, going back to what I'm talking about with the feeling of fear. This movie gives you that natural feeling of fear. It's more than just a slasher film with people getting gutted. I mean, there's really not a lot of blood in this. There's not a lot of violence either. A lot of the murders are done in the dark, and that's kind of the way this film was meant to be, and that's how it should be, in my opinion. I mean, it gives it more mystery. But a cool thing about it, too, is, while it's rated R, it's one of those films where they rely on the scares to really get that rating. I mean, there's not very many jump scares. I mean, I think the one murder we see in broad daylight isn't even in daylight. It's towards the end of the movie, but the lighting is pretty perfect and you get to see the whole thing. Otherwise, a lot of it, there's just no blood. It's just completely horror, full frontal. Like I said, feeling of fear. That's what it is the most. It's the idea of being stalked. And what I love, too, is that even though this is considered a slasher film, it really isn't. I mean, this is the original slasher film. This is what built the foundation. There's a joke that Michael Myers fans and Halloween fans have. It's slasher, the house that Michael Myers built. And, this isn't technically the original slasher film, but considerably the body count, it is. I mean, you can argue other types of movies came before this, but this one is the one that paved the way for Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all your other ripoffs, which to me, they're all ripoffs. I love those films, but they all come from somewhere, and that's this. Another thing I truly love about this film is a lot of the story that takes place is brought to you in a perfect manner. I mean, the pacing is great. It's not ever boring. There's never a dull moment. Everything feels perfect. I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything in this movie that doesn't need to be there. I mean, a lot of the stuff we get is stuff that we need for a good reason. If I were to complain about anything in this movie, because I really don't have anything negative to say about it, the only negative I have is the end. But that's probably the best part of this movie is, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, the ending, we don't know what happens to Michael Myers. I didn't mean to spoil it for you guys, but hey, I got to mention it. I mean, to me, that's the part I hate the most. But again, that's the part that works the most. That's the part that scares you, because you got to remember this comes out at a time where, yes, there's horror films, but nothing quite like this. And people go home thinking, oh my God, that scared the fucking shit out of me. And I can definitely see it. I mean, even as a kid in the 90s watching this movie, when the film ends and the credits roll, I'm immediately thinking, holy shit, I want to know where he went, what happened to him. And now I got to turn the light on the way to my bed. Guys, Halloween 1978 is a great film. God, I wish I would have put more time aside to talk about this, but I just wanted to give it to you guys straightforward with some fun little facts. I could talk all day about this, honest to God truth. This is probably, yeah, I know I've said it before, but this is probably my favorite film of all time. I'm a big fanboy when it comes to horror films, but this one in particular grabs me right away. John Carpenter's Halloween is a masterpiece. It is an original Halloween or horror film that deserves the name Halloween. And you also got to remember too, this movie is famous for, boom, making films that want to use holiday titles. Yes, this is the first one that does it, but there's many others that come after it. Guys, really the only downfall to this film, I'd say, is just that it's old. I mean, I appreciate that, but not a lot of people will. And if you're the type of person that doesn't like older films, you're probably not going to like this one. But if you can appreciate it and get past it, and you want to see a good horror film about a guy going around and stalking young teenage girls that are out having sex and doing shit they're not supposed to, and then they get gutted, well, then this is definitely your movie. Again, this ain't Friday the 13th. This is the original, man. This is the queen of horror films. I'm going to give it a 4. No, fuck that. I'm going to give it a 5-star. I know I sound a little biased, but to me, this is not only my favorite horror film, but it's got to be one of the greatest horror films ever made. It's not the best horror film ever made, but in my opinion, it is one of the best. Maybe I should do a review on the next one that I think is the best. Otherwise, guys, definitely a 5-star film. Again, that's just my rating, but it is definitely worth watching and 100% worth owning. I've got at least 3 copies of it. Thanks, guys, for listening. Please reach out to me if you want to give me your ideas of what you'd like me to review next. Otherwise, stay tuned. Oh, and I forgot to add, I apologize if I got off track with this one. I got to admit I did. Guys, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I try to keep it short and simple. I know I didn't go too in-depth with it. I wanted to give you the straightforward storyline and fun little facts, something I didn't do with the last one. And I wanted to add what I loved most and what I don't like about it, which, like I said, there wasn't any. But if you guys would like to know a little more about this, because I'm such a brainiac with it, definitely reach out to me. Again, big thing, reach out to me. Otherwise, guys, stay scared.